All right, hello everyone. Welcome to our next episode of Going Live with Good Soil. We're live on both our YouTube channel, which we had some trouble getting started a little late. Sorry about that. And we're also live on Twitter Spaces, which appears to be imminently owned by Elon at the original deal price. This is the breaking news. It just seemed to come out in the last 10 or 20 minutes. Good timing for us to kick off Tesla Tuesday. The Tesla stock price everyone watches here is taking a hit yesterday, and it's not participating that much in today's rally after this news broke. The reports seem. I think Twitter was just halted actually, so that's just like a second ago. I mean, Bradford asked right before we started on the Twitter Spaces. He asked if I am holding any Twitter stock or Twitter options. Not at the moment. I'm not sure what I'm going to do about trying to hold Twitter stock. Now it's halted. It might reopen at $53 or something, and then it's really not worth trying to buy for a little bit of if it's like almost official. What are your thoughts, Matt? You want to, and I'll expound further my thoughts, but you probably have an initial reaction too.
Yeah, I mean, this is breaking as of about 20 minutes ago, so we're certainly still digesting it. I think we spoke last week even about the fact that we were expecting a settlement, but I kind of thought there'd be at least like a couple dollar haircut at a minimum from the initially proposed price. Especially with there was the like leaker or the whistleblower, and then there was a second one that was rumored to be coming out, which I think that news just broke last night. So to me, it seemed likely that the deal would go through, but I'm actually kind of surprised that it's at this $54.20 price. So my sense is Elon probably kind of knew he didn't have the best of the legal case there. But yeah, I don't know. I'm surprised a little bit. I'm not surprised that there is a settlement, but surprised that Elon basically caved all the way. But what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I have a pretty strong interpretation that's different from that a little bit. My interpretation of this happening now is Elon could have stayed the course and trying to get a lower price. This could have dragged on. He could have dragged it out further. But knowing Elon and how he's operating in, doing what he thinks is best for humanity going forward, even if he's getting ripped off on the valuation on this Twitter deal, I think it's not a coincidence that this is happening the morning after the controversial tweets he was making yesterday that were, he believes, and I believe too, were attacked by bots in the voting thing. And so I think he sees this as like a inflection point for humanity, potentially a big risk what's going on in the world, and that the bot armies of Twitter are influencing opinions in such a way that could be bad outcomes for the world. That's what I think he believes. Whether other people agree with that or not, that's up to them. I'm just thinking that's what he's believing in his mindset, and he's just like, I got to get this done before everyone thinks that you know this outcome in the Russia-Ukraine has to happen, and it results in World War III of a nuclear attack. Because the Twitter bot armies took over sentiment of the masses. So I think in his mind, he just needs to he sees that there's too much risk in delaying this further. Like Twitter has become the mouthpiece, sort of like this huge network of opinions, and it's so corrupt the way Twitter is run right now, and he needs to clean that and have it more integrity. And so I think all that coming together with yesterday's kind of crescendo of events makes him realize, let's just get this done. It's not worth saving a couple $1 billion in my pocket just to delay it further when there's a huge risk here. That's my thought.
Yeah, and his deposition was scheduled for later this week. So, that was always kind of the goal is, these things typically settle before you get to like a, multi-day deposition, which I'm sure, neither party really wanted to go down the road of. So, yeah, maybe you're right that, the kind of huge storm that he kind of created and walked into yesterday was something of a spark for him to just say, you know what, I don't want to argue over the pennies or billions, as it were. I'd rather just get it done and have that certainty behind us. So, What do you think about the Tesla stock price reaction, though? I mean, that's it took a pretty steep dive. It was up to, what was it, like 256 or something like that, dropped about $8
Yeah.
almost immediately.
Yeah.
I know Gary Black had been saying that, any sort of settlement will be good news because it just, gets rid of the quote unquote
Yeah.
overhang. So what's your
I
thought on
disagreed
what's
with
happened?
Gary's. I actually disagreed with Gary's assessment on that marginally. I thought any settlement below like $50 would be good news for the Tesla
Hmm.
stock, but I thought any settlement above that, like, and at the full price, for example, Elon, it's implied that Elon has to sell a few more $1 billion worth of Tesla shares to finance this, and that's why you
Yeah.
have this kind of marginal hit to this Tesla stock immediately once it's announced that's at full price. If it was announced at $45, I think Tesla stock would be up an extra $5 or $8, maybe. That's my thought.
Yeah.
That's my gut reaction. So maybe medium term over the next 2 or 3 months. Gary is right in like the quote unquote overhang or whatever that means of this Twitter distraction, of the deal going to court and everything is removed. But I'm not so sure about that. But I think just in terms of the merger arb people, trying to price this into this Tesla stock, and it just seems appropriate that Tesla takes a haircut of a few dollars here because Elon's going to have to sell some more shares most likely to finance this at this full price. I mean, who else wants to come in this deal now at the full price to help Elon finance it, right? I mean, I'm not sure. It's going to be a hard sell for him to get more equity, partners to come in, possibly.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it seems kind of surprising that like he would have had any trouble kind of raising financing at all, just because who doesn't want to go in on a deal where Elon's going to be in control of something? I mean, he has
Yeah.
such a kind of ridiculous track record of just
Yeah,
generating
that's true.
absurd returns. And like with Twitter, I mean, we were diving into Twitter a couple months ago when the deal was like a little bit more newly announced, and it was astonishing just how much fat there was in the organization. I mean, one of the charts we looked at the time was like the Twitter's revenue chart is actually like a pretty phenomenal exponential, but their costs actually outpace that exponential growth in revenue. So they've just, there's so much bloat in there, and I certainly believe that Elon's going to go in there pretty aggressively with like a flamethrower, and like he's going to really upset all the employees, and like nobody's going to like it, but at the end of the day, it's like I thought his one of his like tweets or not tweets, one of his text messages with Parag was really telling. Parag was all like upset about how Elon was causing such a distraction for the important work they're doing at Twitter, and Elon's just like, what did you get done this past week? It's just like
bringing down the hammer.
Answer.
Yeah.
So like that's like he's gonna be so like focused on like what specifically have you done, and I'm kind of excited to see that, because I'm sure it's going to be like an absolute disaster, and
it's
I'm
going to
have
be
my popcorn.
A much needed disaster. I mean, if anyone can go in there and root out all the displaced morale and kind of every big company has like some sort of like corruption or major inefficiencies within it. It becomes so bureaucratic. It's not Twitter. I'm not singling out Twitter. Every big company that's been around for a long time, like look at Facebook. I'm sure there's tons of like honey trap jobs in there, like as Elon describes. I'm sure there's tons of that in every big tech company. It's not just Twitter. And so, but for Elon to be able to go into one of those companies and commit himself to like root it out and renew it, I mean, that is exciting to me. And when I saw this news break, like, I didn't know I'd react this way initially, but I reacted like my first words that came to my head was like, hallelujah, like hallelujah for humanity. Like humanity needs, to be steered in the right direction again. The social media has been so poisonous, and like now you have bots, spam accounts, freaking, it started with like junk emails, and then it's evolved into like spam bots and like, crazy, and like it's influencing public opinion in lots of ways and wrong ways. There's bad actors, it's just, and I can think of no one else I would trust more to get this under control than Elon Musk. I mean, can anyone think of anyone else they would trust more? Can anyone? No, I don't think so.
And like there's so much low-hanging fruit too. I mean, that's the frustrating part, is it's not like this is an insurmountable technical challenge. Like how many of these like CZ Binance like scam crypto tweets have you seen? And there's just like, how about just like look for anything that says like thank me later, because like it's like this exact same format of like all these tweets, but they just
I
don't
got a
delete
prediction.
them. All right.
I bet you Elon brings back in what's his name? Mudge, is that his nickname?
Mudge, yeah, yeah, yeah.
I bet you Elon brings Mudge back into into a high-ranking role at Twitter. I bet you
That's a great
Mudge comes
prediction.
back.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
hadn't thought of that, but to me, that makes
I
a
think
lot
he
of
will.
sense.
Yeah, Mudge is gonna come back and help fix things up, I think, and he'll delegate a lot of it to him.
What about like a CEO? Because like Elon clearly doesn't want to be CEO of Twitter. So do you have
Yeah.
anyone in mind? Like who do you think would come in?
I mean, I would love for I mean, like even like I don't know, David Sachs, I think he's friends with. I think he could be a CEO potentially. I don't know. I'm just throwing names out there. It's a whole different set of skills to be a CEO, to
Yeah,
manage people. Elon seems to have conquered it in a very efficient way. He'll do it temporarily until the ship, he's convinced the ship is on the right direction to being steered the correct way,
yeah,
and maybe he'll get trust in someone. But I think Elon will take over that role and work on delegating things initially. He'll yeah, it'll be interesting. I think there's a lot of people in Twitter that hate Elon, people that
yeah,
work in
for
Twitter
sure.
that really hate Elon, and they've probably been like passively sabotaging this whole thing for
Yeah,
Elon, and those people are in trouble. They better they're gonna all pretend that they weren't. They're all gonna because there's probably nowhere else to get a good cushy honey trap job at this point with Facebook and everyone else, shutting the doors for growth right now.
yeah,
And so yeah, Elon's gonna he's gonna find out who was passively sabotaging this, who's suppressing his tweet, who's in charge of suppressing his tweets recently, all that stuff. And I think the ship will get righted. I'm excited. I'm super excited for Twitter. And like what we're building here with this Tesla 24/7, like I feel like this is gonna have a better chance to evolve into something really meaningful. Like the technology of Twitter is just gonna get so much better with Elon in charge, whether it's like 3 months out or 3 years out. We all know the technology is gonna get like 10 times better within Twitter, right? I mean, it's just
yeah.
a given.
It's so true. I mean, just like one of like the easiest thing is like the Twitter Spaces. You can't pause like a live Twitter Spaces. So like sometimes I'm doing something and then I need to pause because like the kids need something, but I can't do that. So like I miss whatever's happening. And it's like, why wouldn't you just enable a pause feature or like a speed up feature, just like the way YouTube does? And so
Yeah.
I agree with you. Like I'm like as frustrating as this whole saga has been as like a Tesla investor and just the way it's been kind of the timing was certainly not ideal. But I think from a humanity standpoint, like stepping back, I am really excited and just happy and relieved that there's going to be one solid bastion of free speech out there.
Yeah.
Because we need that. Like Elon's right. The state of the world has not been super positive lately, and so
No.
it's nice to have just one little kind of safe space that like people can just disagree on publicly and not be worried about like self-censoring or getting kicked off the
Yeah.
platform.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I also think, YouTube is look how big YouTube has gotten with its network effects, right? But it's missing something. It's missing the interaction of Twitter. So can
Mm.
YouTube add the interaction of Twitter before Twitter can add the YouTube technology into Twitter? I feel like the Twitter could add video on top of the Spaces, platform, and then become a serious competitor and even better than YouTube over time. I'm thinking 5, 8 years out, like 3 to 5 years out. I think that's a realistic possibility. So there's a lot of openness for Twitter if Elon, is in charge, and I'm excited. Bradford also asked before we started, like if I'm going to hold any shares to try to hold some privately. I'm probably not. I mean, I'm pretty much out of dry powder personally. Super invested in Tesla. If Tesla was at all-time highs, maybe I'd trim some Tesla to try to get more involved in Twitter. But I still think Tesla personally is an incredible value proposition for the long term. But I'm just super excited for Twitter to be like the medium of the future now for people to communicate. And this is really exciting news to me. There'll be some people that are very upset, but I think for the good of humanity, this is definitely the right thing.
So one funny byproduct of this, I was just checking. Dogecoin is now up 5% on this news. So I think
Wow.
market's starting to price in that there'll be some sort of like integrated payment platform. I think. Um,
Wow.
but yeah,
Wow.
it's definitely exciting. Yeah, so, but anyway,
Yeah.
we probably have some other stuff to talk about, don't we?
Yeah, we do.
No,
Yeah,
it's
we
been a
do.
busy week.
Busy every week. It's been like one of the most historic weeks in some respects. If you include this Twitter thing closing or like about to close, like officially he sent a letter last night. Apparently it's being reported that he wants to just close the deal 54.20. So it seems like it's going to be a done deal. And then the AI day, bot kind of reveal just to show how serious Tesla is on this. We got to touch on that, but macro market, we usually kick things off with macro market. I mean, we're starting off October with the macro market in full gear, kicking ass. I mean, Tesla had a rough day yesterday. We'll talk about that in a second. But the macro market in a second, overall, it seems like we're off to a good start for the quarter. What do you think, Matt? You think this is the turning point, or you think it's a bear market rally, or what do we think?
I think it could be a turning point, but at this point, I really am not going to have faith in anything until we start seeing some, kind of definitive moves in inflation, which will essentially force the Fed's hand.
Yeah.
So this is certainly a really strong pop, and it would not at all surprise me if, kind of last Friday marked the lows of this, this year. But I'm not going to rule out the possibility of further declines. I mean, we're really, from my perspective, in a pretty tenuous situation on the macro front. All these companies are kind of teetering. There's a lot of inventory building up. We saw Nike kind of get whacked with their inventory buildup and kind of the implications for pricing. That's a bit of a concern on Tesla too, which I'm sure we'll talk about a little bit.
Yeah.
So I think there's potential that multiples have certainly been compressed, but there's potential that the earnings part of the PE ratio will start to deteriorate pretty significantly from here for a lot of companies. And so if that happens, then that could certainly send the market down to lower lows. But what do you think?
I think there's a real possibility of a turning point. We're going to have to see how the Fed what the tone is of the Fed going forward. I mean, Australia, the Central Bank of Australia, was the first to sort of signal a pivot here. Apparently last night, raising rates only 25 basis points when everyone expected 50 basis points. So of all the global central banks, there's been a lot of outcry, even by, I think, the UN. I saw a report the UN is asking the federal banks not to raise interest rates so much. So there's a lot of outcry.
The UN is crazy.
Doing yeah. And there's a lot of people, a lot of, entities out there saying this is getting out of hand. And
Bank of England pivoted last week too. I mean, that's worth calling out as well.
The gilts thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, so I think there are signs of Fed tightening, to stop or not to be as aggressive and to slow down. So I think the market's sort of trying to read the tea leaves on that and try to jump the gun a little bit. And if so we're at a sort of a pivotal point with the market. I think if the Fed raises rates 75 basis points again on the next meeting, or if they signal that they're definitely going to do that again, I think the market could crumble 5%, 10% fast again, but if the Fed doesn't do that or even signals that they're softening a little bit, then I think the market could continue to rally upwards another 5 or 10% from here. So we're sort of at this inflection point in the markets again, hanging on whether or not there's a pivot coming. Sort of I feel like what was happening in probably early August or end of July and stuff when there was that rally going on and the Fed doubled down on being hardcore, tight and hawkish. So we're sort of at round 2 of that. So we'll find out. Yeah. I mean, it's rocky. Yeah.
Yeah. And it would just be nice. It would be nice if Tesla would participate in the rally. I mean, it's such a bummer to see macro so strong yesterday and Tesla just, underperforming so significantly. I was certainly surprised.
And then today again.
And
then again today because of the Twitter thing. Yeah. So Tesla's, as we're talking, up 1.6%. The Nasdaq's up almost 3%. So yeah, Tesla's underperforming at the moment. It was overperforming. It was up 4 or 5% and up to 255, 256. It's dropped $10 since the Twitter report. So that's a big hit. And Tesla's certainly underperforming. But as Gary Black calls it, an overhang, or other people call it an overhang. This will be removed once it's finalized, and Tesla can kind of get back to fundamentals and not, have these merger arb people trying to pair trade it with Twitter in different ways that result in this type of dips when Twitter goes up, because people sell the merger arb people, they do pair trades. They might sell X dollars worth of Tesla and buy X dollars worth of Twitter, now that the deal went through, or vice versa. They had that trade on until the deal went, so doing this stuff, and it creates movements in the stock price. So even though
Yeah.
the stock price went, even though the stock price just went down like $20 billion in market cap, it doesn't mean $20 billion was put on this pair trade. It could only be like a couple $100 million is put in this pair trade, but because of liquidity in the markets, the that results in a market cap drop of 10 or 20 billion in the stock price. It's sometimes people, I think, there's a fallacy where people think like they see the market cap drop $10 billion, so they think someone shorted $10 billion of Tesla. That's not the
Yeah.
case. Yeah, people have to
No,
kind of
yeah,
understand that.
it's very true. I mean, the prices move on the margin, so it's always a market of willing buyers and sellers, and so yeah,
Yeah.
there's not a like an actual like pile of $10 billion that just got like burnt or anything like that.
Yeah, people
But
just shorted worth of Tesla or sold worth of Tesla to create the market cap to drop 10 billion. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, macro market, we touched on the Tesla, the reaction. I think yesterday the big drop was a combination of a category of investors that don't understand the bot and they just lost faith or get confused and they lose confidence in Tesla because they don't really understand the bot. And that's a big category of sophisticated investors out there that haven't been following Tesla religiously like we have for the last several years. And that category of investors probably felt less easy about what is this Tesla? Why am I investing in it? The bot was supposed to be something special. It's nothing compared to Boston Dynamics. This is crazy. So that category investor is probably like, it was like, I'll lighten up my load of Tesla. Combined with then on Sunday, the production delivery number, deliveries being, in the 340s. I think that was at the bottom, not even really expected by many people. And we touched on it last week that it could be possible and the market would get hit. I mean, the stock would get hit. But I hadn't heard any other Tesla bulls even reference the 340s as a possibility, to be honest. Did you hear anyone? In our
no,
Twitterverse, I didn't hear anyone. Yeah.
no. I mean, it was certainly below where we were expecting it to come, but yeah, I mean, that's the thing that's kind of confusing to me about it is like for the stock to be dropping 8% or so. It's not just that like the Q3 earnings are low. The market seems to be saying that there's a pretty significant demand issue. I mean, it's not like the 20,000 deliveries translates to the company being worth 8% less. So, I've seen a lot of people kind of talking about how this is going to, overhang into Q4 and like it lowers your earnings estimates for 2023 because, demand is going to be softer than previously expected. So you're right that this was certainly a surprise. And I do think there's some truth to that theory, but I don't know. I also think like a part of it was just true, like that they actually are just unwinding the wave. But it certainly was not communicated well. I mean, what are your thoughts on, Tesla was talking about doing this? I think back in Q1, they said they were going to, try to prioritize on cost, not on, quantity at the end of
Yeah.
the month. And then they didn't do that. It was like the strangest
Yeah.
thing. And then there was no
Yeah.
communication this quarter. And all of a sudden it's like, yeah, we just decided to undo the wave. Was
Yeah.
that surprising or frustrating to you? What's your thought on that?
Yeah. The end of quarter push has been a logistics thing since 2014, 2013. I remember since, back even when Tesla was just in the US before it hit Europe and Asia and China and stuff, then they'd have to time their like trucks to go out to the East Coast. I remember evaluating deliveries. It'd be like all the cars built for the East Coast are being built in the beginning of the quarter so they can get trucked out to the East Coast in
Yeah.
time. And then all the deliveries would happen in the last like 2 weeks. So this has been happening since the beginning, just even
Mhm.
when it was just in the US. And Tesla has always signaled that they desire to have a more even, delivery throughout the quarter. They've always said we're going to do that in the next year, the next few quarters. So they've always been saying that, but they've never done it. And now they're doing it now intentionally or by happenstance. And I think I'm not sure which it is. I think happenstance means like demand in China was not as strong as they anticipated at the end of quarter. So they planned a little bit more poorly earlier
Yeah.
in the quarter. Like they could have delivered they could have produced a few more weeks in the beginning of the quarter of cars for export if they estimated it right, but they maybe overestimated the actual end of quarter
Yeah.
delivery demand in China. And so they're just like, all right, well, we overdid it this time. So these last 2 weeks of production in China, we'll export it back out to Europe, because we don't want to cut prices in China and get lower margin on these cars just to make deliveries happen when we could send them out to Europe and get a higher margin return because there's enough demand in Europe to satisfy this at the higher prices in Europe, So that's
Yeah.
where my head is at
Yeah,
right now.
well, and that makes sense. And if you think back to the beginning of the quarter too, I mean, you did have the plant being shut down for, depending on which model, it was, like 3 weeks to 6 weeks, I think, something like that. So they did have something of a rush to try to get those, first couple weeks of vehicles like to Europe, given how slow the quarter started. So it was an odd quarter for sure, but like I was kind of expecting like last quarter, any hit that they would have had like would be very explainable just by the plant shutdown. So I was kind of thinking that last quarter they would have unwound the wave, but they clearly didn't. So I don't know. It was just surprising. It's like I'm a little bit frustrated that the communication was like just basically zero on this, and it's just a surprise. So I do fall
Yeah.
into that camp. I think of Tesla could use a little bit better PR focus, but I think at the end of
Yeah.
the day, it doesn't really matter, and they just don't care. It's
It
short term
sets up
noise
for
anyway.
short-term noise. The stock, people think I think people are assuming the 9% drop in Tesla was all because of the production deliveries. I think only 3 or 4 or 5% of it was. I think half of it was the AI bot, hangover from that category of investors that
You
don't
think
really
so?
understand it. Yeah, I do.
But were,
I
were
mean,
expectations high for the robot, like from institutional investors?
not from bulls, but I think institutional investors expected something at least on par with like close to a Boston Dynamics reveal, and for them it was like way. If you don't follow Tesla closely and you're just kind of like an average sophisticated investor, you have like 20 companies you have to follow, and you have 5% in Tesla or whatever of your $1 billion portfolio, and you're like, oh yeah, Tesla's got this bot coming up, it's going to compete with Boston Dynamics, be cool, and then you see the unveiling and you see this robot being wheeled out that Tesla's making that can't even walk. I mean, that's got to lower your confidence. You don't really understand. You're just like, what is Tesla doing here? This is not a good direct. You start second guessing your thesis on Tesla as one of your 20 stocks being in. And I think you have enough marginal institutional investors like that lighten up their load of Tesla, and it could easily create Tesla stock dropping 5% plus in a day. And you know, you don't have enough of those institutional investors seeing the bot and getting emboldened to buy more Tesla. I don't
Yeah.
think that outweighs the number of marginal institutional investors that were less confident because of that. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
That's my
yeah,
thought.
I guess so. To me, it just seems so dumb, and like maybe
Hmm.
I'm just like too much in the bubble. But like I
We're
saw
both in the bubble. We're all in
I
the
saw
bubble. Everyone on this stream is in the bubble of the Tesla Twitterverse. The job is to get out of the bubble and think outside the bubble. Anyway, yeah.
and
What?
I
So
do try to do that. Like I read a bunch of threads and like watched a lot of commentary of people who basically said, "Oh, this was like not impressive," and like they're
mhm.
just like a high school science project basically, or like robotics project. But like, and I saw so many people comparing like the capability to the Boston Dynamics and how it was like so falls so much short of what Boston Dynamics can do. And in my mind, I'm just like, but there's no market for like robots that are really great
Yeah,
at parkour. Like what the hell is the
yeah,
point of those
yeah,
robots? And like as they were
yeah.
describing at the very beginning of the presentation, like the goal of like optimizing for output and like for like being able to essentially like standardize parts and lower manufacturing cost, and lower essentially the operating cost by having lower expenditure. I was like, oh, of course that's the way you should build a robot. If you want like a practical robot that has economic utility, you want the lowest
Yeah.
manufacturing cost, and you want it to have the brains to be able to learn things. And I'm like, well, that
Mhm.
makes all sorts of sense. But like so many people that I read who were critical just did not seem to understand, that the goal wasn't like having the highest possible performance. And I'm just like,
Yeah.
I don't understand why that's such a hard
Yeah.
concept. It seems so basic.
Yeah. People, I don't know if they understand that building the brain or the software of the robot is what Tesla's value is in this more than the actual hardware. The good thing is Tesla has the expertise to build the hardware with their actuators expertise and their battery powering and all that stuff. So they have the expertise to build the hardware in a cost efficient way that can be mass manufactured. That's really good. but the probably equally as hard or more hard is actually the brains of the robot. And I think a lot of people don't really understand that, and I'm still trying to understand it. Like, what is this? What does that mean? The brains of the robot? Like, once you build the brains of the robot, like it's like applies to all the robots all at once. If you want it to, it's just like
Hmm.
you have to build this crazy software neural network architecture to interpret the world in a way that makes sense to humans, so that the robot functions in a sensical way to humans too. Like, so it's just it's very strange to comprehend, and I don't think a lot of people are ready to comprehend it yet. That obstacle. People are just like focused on Boston Dynamics, like how functional can it be? They don't really understand the brains of the bot, like how far away Boston Dynamics is, and even Google and those on like the brains of the bot. Like building open AI language models is one thing, but the brains of a real world AI is very complicated. I feel like, and
Yeah.
Tesla's sort of trying to figure it out as best as anyone and better than anyone.
Yeah, I did think it was really encouraging to actually see the bot, trying to do some work on the actual line at Fremont. Like the fact that they were even that far along in testing it in that way, I thought was really encouraging. I mean, it was clearly not very good yet. I don't know if you noticed, but like it was not lining things up right at all. It's like even in
Yeah.
the video, you're like,
Yeah.
okay, it's clearly not helping yet. But in my mind, it'd be very easy to see, I don't know, like 2 years down the road, like the earliest kind of iterations of these bots actually doing some of the kind of more rote, like repetitive tasks in Fremont, and that could actually have an impact on margin at that point. So to me, that's where I get pretty excited, is like the margin potential, I think, can come a little bit sooner than maybe some people might think.
Yeah, I'm very excited that we're gonna have an AI day every year. It seems like, and the progress we can kind of measure. They'll demonstrate or explain what their latest things. I mean, basically, Elon and Tesla are doing a different open source model, just like they open source their patents. They're open sourcing their what their latest research or latest skunk works are with the robot, in hopes to attract more AI talent, because they think from this point forward, they're going to be innovating faster than anyone can catch up with them anyway, which I think they will,
Yeah.
with their track record. So it's an interesting strategy to recruit talent, but it also gives all of us, investors or anyone who's watching it, a window into the latest tech in this space, that we can see, at least. And I would argue Tesla is probably further along than anyone else in terms of building the brains. And they'll pretty soon, within a couple of years, I'd say they'll be up to par with Boston Dynamics in terms of hardware functionality. Yeah.
Do you think so? Because I think that's like I don't think they'll ever be doing a lot of the stuff that like the Boston Dynamics ones can do. Like
Well, just like a bot that's walking around that could,
yeah,
like,
sure.
that could jog, 4 miles an hour, whatever the max speed is. I can pick things up, just like
Yeah.
all the basics, like it's at least maybe next year, maybe the year after, they'll have a bot of a humanoid that can do that. I mean, yeah, they might not ever build the dog or bots that can like jump 10 feet in the air. I don't think, I don't know what they'll do in that respect, but at some point, Tesla might have more than one bot. I think initially they'll probably just focus just on one general purpose humanoid, but maybe they'll just stick with one, but they could have other types of robots at some point too.
Yeah, I think Elon's very cognizant of like not wanting to enable the machine revolution, so he wants the
Yeah.
like humans to actually be able to overpower them, which sounds kind of funny,
Yeah.
but it's actually, I think, a pretty smart
Yeah.
consideration. So no,
Yeah. And
I go ahead.
yeah. And there's all those updates on the dojo and chip architecture, and I thought there was encouraging comments from, you know Tesla skeptics on that I like. Naveen Rao, who we had on our channel, interviewed a while back with Gary Marcus. He's sort of I would say, certainly at the forefront of chip architecture in terms of expertise, like along the same lines of Jim Keller, almost, I would say I put him
Yeah.
at. But he's been skeptical of Tesla's chips in the past, but now his thread of feedback shows sort of a change of tune, or a change, where he's not like these like thinks Tesla's like amazing now, but he thinks they have a good chance to become the leader in this space within a couple of years, or for what they want to do, they can really, have a promising future potentially, over depending how they go from here. I don't know. It just seems promising that change of opinion from someone who's skeptical when you see that happen, it's like, all right, the thesis of Tesla bulls is being validated, that Tesla does know what they're doing in this space, and they are, making things happen.
Yeah, I mean that was a really great thread. I mean, we were speaking just a minute ago about how we can be so much in the bubble, and like for sure, this time last year, I thought that the Dojo supercomputer would be up and running and being used by Tesla, right now, in October of 2022. Clearly they're not there yet, and it's looking like maybe in Q1 23 they'll be there. I'm skeptical of that, but it was really great to kind of read Naveen's comments, because he's like, well, yeah, of course, like scaling was going to be an issue with this type of setup, and like the power delivery at scale is really hard, and of course that's like what they spent a lot of time talking about, was just how like the physical layout of the chips caused so many problems, and they ended up breaking them just when they started kind of delivering 2.2 megawatts over an extended period of time. So to me it was kind of helpful to see somebody who understood the challenges in a more detailed level than you or I do. Say like, of course these challenges were unexpected, but to still have optimism, and for him to be more optimistic now than he was a year ago, to me was a very kind of encouraging sign, because it says like that Tesla actually is making significant progress, even if it's maybe not at the pace that we would have projected a year ago.
Yeah. Yeah. So just to rehash, everyone who came late, Tesla, the news is Tesla, or Elon, not Tesla, sorry, Elon is willing to buy Twitter at the original deal price of $54.20. Tesla, the stock, has taken a major hit because of that, because I think it implies that Elon is going to have to sell a few more $1 billion of Tesla shares in order to finance the deal fully at the full price, if he doesn't have any new partners coming in, which may or may not happen. Who knows? So therefore, there's all kinds of merger arb people that were long Tesla and short Twitter a certain amount, that are now reversing their trades and short and selling Tesla, or shorting Tesla and buying back Twitter to get to the 54.20 deal price kind of thing. So that creates sort of these market reactions in the stock price. And Twitter stock has been halted. It started the day around like $40, and then it got halted all the way up at $46 or $47. I think it started there at $42, and then somewhere around there, and now it traded up to $47 or almost $48 before it was halted. So we'll find out news before the end of the day, the trading day, I would think, on Twitter, because I would think they would unhalt the stock at some point with an official announcement or official news. But I just don't know enough about how these complex mergers happen. Maybe it bleeds into tomorrow before it's official or whatnot. But it appears imminent that Tesla, or Elon, is taking over Twitter at 54.20. And Matt and I are both excited about this prospect for humanity. I think that it's no coincidence that Elon had those controversial tweets yesterday, which he in his mind felt were being taken over and manipulated by massive amounts of bots, that he felt the major threat to humanity and the steering of humanity as more of a reason to make this just happen right away, instead of making it last longer to try to get a $50 or $45 price on the Twitter. So that's what I think, that he just slept on it, maybe, or last night, I guess, when they sent the letter, maybe it was immediately after that he realized, we just got to make this happen. It's too risky to let this drag on with the way Twitter has been corrupted. I have to take it over and fix this, global network of opinion here, the veracity of it, so that bots aren't influencing people, and people can just, anyway, that was my interpretation of why it's happening now. And other people think that Elon just doesn't want it to be deposed, and that he sees this letters on the wall that he's going to just have to be forced to take it at the full deal price. And I mean, you just don't know for sure. And Matt sort of, I'm not sure. You're not sure either. I think you think maybe it's because he just doesn't want to be deposed, right?
I mean, I was certainly expecting a settlement, before he was deposed. So, yeah, I mean that's not necessarily a surprise for me. But yeah, the surprise for me was that he's just like, to hell with it, full price, just get it done. I thought he had a little bit more. But then he would presumably have to get it approved by the Twitter shareholders again, and it would probably just stretch the whole thing out. And
Yeah, it could
maybe he
delay.
just is like
Yeah.
sick of delays and just wants to get it done and get it over with. So
Yeah.
yeah, I
And in
don't
his
know.
mind, I think there's too high of a risk of World War III, a nuclear war breaking out. Like, even if it's 10% or 20%, that's just too high to accept. He wants to do the best thing for humanity. And, it's not worth trying to save a few $1 billion. I mean, $1 billion is a lot of money, but for him, it's just a few percent, a couple percent of his net worth. Like, it's not, if it's going to lead to a higher likelihood of World War III breaking out because you have bot armies fighting each other, calling for the death of each other's world. And I don't know, it's just
He's
it's
he's he's been tweeting a lot more about like how important it is to get Starship like just done fast, and
yes.
how like humanity is just
Yeah.
like he's very clearly concerned about the direction of humanity right now. And he
Yes.
says all the time about like the window where we can become planetary might not be open long. And so I think like
Yes.
he views that as much more of a constraint or like an urgent
Yes.
limitation than his money. Like he doesn't really care about the money. I really do believe that. He cares about what he can do with it, the changes that he can make with it. But like time is running out, I think, in his mind. He's got this
Yes.
like frenetic pace about him, it seems, right now.
No, you're absolutely right, Matt. That's exactly, you can get inside Elon's head a little bit by understanding that stuff. I feel like why he's tweeting how urgent it is to get Starship going. And yeah, in his mind, we're on the precipice of a potential extinction event here, or just it's just, you just don't know. And he just wants to ensure the light of consciousness is ensured by getting something set up in Mars as soon as possible. So anyway, it's we'll see what happens. So we were talking about Tesla a lot, and one other thing about Tesla that came out yesterday is this Google rumor. Have you ever been? What do we think about this Google rumor? I mean, what was there's like some partnership or something?
Yeah, so I mean, the details were really scant. I mean, it was essentially just a rumor I saw in a couple different places on Twitter that just said, Google and Tesla were rumored to be in talks about a partnership, and so very unclear about exactly what the nature of that partnership would be, or who would benefit. So I don't know. I mean, to me it seems likely given some of the areas that Google's involved in. I mean, the huge amount of video data that they have via YouTube, and what Tesla's trying to do on like the AI side with primarily video feeds. To me, there seems like there could be some natural synergies there, but just not enough detail to know what specifically they're looking at, and let alone could it be meaningful financially. So I don't know. I think
Yeah.
it's too early to tell. But what were your thoughts when you saw that come across?
Yeah, I mean, it's possible some like software engineer managers at Google like reached out to software engineer managers at Tesla and were like, yeah, like, what are you doing with this particular aspect of your SRAM or DRAM or something? Like, why do you think that? And then somehow that communication is intercepted, or turns into like rumorville of a partnership. It's possible just something as simple as that happened. But even if there was something more significant, like Google approached Elon, or Larry Page and Sergey approached Elon directly and were like, really like what you're doing here. We want to partner with you on this software piece or whatever. Like, I don't see it being material to Elon's market cap valuation at this point. Tesla being a 700 or 800
Yeah.
billion market cap, what are they going to do? Buy a piece of software for a couple $100 million annually? And is that going to really, or I just don't see it being
Yeah.
material to Tesla's market cap. It sounds kind of cool. Google, Tesla, two big brands, but I just don't know what partnership they'd have that would be like really meaningful to the valuation of Tesla, and even in a best case scenario.
Yeah, the thing it might do is give a little bit of credibility to Tesla's AI approach. And, I think there still are so many institutional investors out there that think it's just a car company that don't
Yeah,
understand what this
that's
AI
true.
day thing was. And so to the extent they're like, oh, Tesla developed a chip in house, and, Google wants to use that now for their own processes. Like, I
Yeah,
could see that just being a data point of saying, oh, okay, well, if Google likes it, then I'm going to outsource my diligence to Google and just trust that,
yeah,
Tesla actually does have something good here. So I don't
yeah,
know. I kind of hope that that could be a byproduct, just like accelerating the education of the investor base out there. But I think
yeah,
it's just probably just too early to really read too much into it, to be honest with you.
yeah, yeah. And then one other note we wanted to touch on is Elon's health. It's looking very good, very favorable. He seems to have lost more weight. He just seems in a better mood. He mentioned he's doing some kind of fasting. I think these are all very good positives for the quote unquote key man risk of
Mhm.
Tesla. It de-risks that to a significant degree. The healthier Elon is, the less risky that is for the stock. And that's one of the biggest risks of the stock, is the key man risk of Elon, right? So I think seeing his health improve is great for not only Tesla, the stock, but also for humanity's future in lots of ways. So I'm excited to see him get on that bandwagon to be cognizant and try to improve that.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I mean, that was, I think he has this mindset that his time can best be spent in the factory at any given moment or like solving some problem. But, in the
Yeah,
long scheme of things, you want to be able to, maximize the amount of workable hours that you have. And if you're just, shoving cheeseburgers down your throat and, just
yeah,
working all the time and just not taking care of your body, that's going to, eventually something's going to blow up. So I was certainly glad to see that. Although I think I
yeah.
might be paler than him again now. So that was a little disappointing to see.
Yeah, you're paler. You're much skinnier. If we could
Much skin.
combine you and Elon together, it would be like the perfect pale, fit human being, probably. Not. But you're about the same height, surprisingly. I mean,
Oh,
today
really?
on
I
the
assumed
live
he was like
stream,
6'2" or something like that.
I think you're 6'2". Aren't you six
Yeah,
two? You're
no,
six
I'm
one,
like
six
6 foot.
two.
No, I'm actually just like
I don't know. I think you cut
5'11" and
yourself
three
short.
quarters.
No way.
I don't know. You're
I don't know.
surprised.
We still have next. Maybe,
We'll pull out
yeah.
the tape measure next time we get
So
together.
next time, next time we will. Well, Tesla's about to go negative on the day. It looks like maybe partly because the Nasdaq is dropping overall. It was up like 3.5%. Now it's only up 2.25%. So I think Tesla is just going down at this point. The Twitter deal is mostly priced in, but now Tesla's just kind of drifting lower along from here with the Nasdaq. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see Tesla close negative today. That's for sure with this Twitter announcement. So is there anything else we want to touch on before we go to Q&A? I mean, we'll do Q&A for 15 minutes just on the YouTube live stream, and then we'll just cut over to Twitter Spaces for the last 20 minutes like normal before the next live stream comes on after us on the Tesla 24-hour Spaces
It's
here.
probably worth
What
noting
do you
in
think?
case
Anything else you
people
want to touch on
hadn't.
before Q&A?
It's probably just worth noting in case people didn't hear that Firefly did actually have a successful launch to orbit last Friday. So they're kind of a new one into the club. So
Mm,
that's a little bit of competition in the small sat space for Rocket Lab, but kind of uneventful news otherwise. I mean, Rocket Lab's certainly been rising with the macro tide. So I think we can open it up, but just want to make sure people
yeah.
are aware of that who follow us for Rocket Lab insights also.
Yep. Yeah. Good thing to keep an eye on. See if they can send multiple launches to low Earth orbit or not anytime soon. So, okay, Alex, you want to queue up the first question? We'll read it out loud and then answer it. From Calistoker123 on Twitter, most important thing you two have learned while starting and running good soil investment management and our YouTube channel, I assume, because we have two things we sort of link together. What's the most important thing we have learned? I mean, I knew going into it, starting running a hedge fund is very difficult to succeed in. I knew going into that, so I don't think I learned that. I already kind of knew it's very difficult and hard to beat the market consistently, um, and that it would be volatile and so forth. But I guess I've learned that with the YouTube channel that we have, that you can kind of link the hedge fund business we're running and the YouTube channel in a kind of a cool way where we open source a lot of our research. When we talk to industry experts on things that are part of our portfolio, we hold the interviews on like a Zoom or something so we can record it and put it on our YouTube channel, right? We've done that a number of times with the space industry roundtable, full self-driving industry with Naveen and Gary Marcus. We've done it on a number of things, and so we'll continue to do that. We have an exciting interview coming up soon. We'll release, and yeah, so I've learned that you can put those things together. And ARK Investment, sort of I think opened that door initially with their open sourcing of research and led the way on that. So kudos to them. But then I feel like we also learned that we can add an extra layer of our charitable component on top of that now, and we donate to charities of choice of the people we're interviewing now. So our fund has that kind of built into its model to donate to charity, half the fees, net of expenses. But we put that we earmark that amount being donated to donate based on who we interview, what charity they want us to donate to, and we talk about that as part of the discussion. So that's been a really cool process to learn how you can link it all together, I guess. Matt, any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing that jumped into my head when I saw this was macro. I mean, we've been so
Mm,
focused on individual
yes.
company analysis, and like this year hasn't really mattered, like
Yeah.
what the company has actually done, and because everything's just been hit. Although now Twitter is positive year to date, so we would have been a lot better shorting Tesla and going long Twitter, which just makes no sense from a fundamental standpoint. Um, so yeah, I mean, diving into macro and kind of seeing how important Fed policy decisions are, that's something that was not nearly as kind of front of mind for us, when I just joined spring of last year, as it is now. It's like now we start every single live stream with about 15 minutes of that. So yeah, no, that's a
Yeah, the
problem.
macro stuff. Yeah, we had to force ourselves to at least attempt to understand the macro market and talk about it because it's such a big part of the Tesla stock price and other stocks that we invest in. That's true. Yeah. All right. Next question is from Tesla SpaceX fan on Twitter. Do you expect a large currency related hit to the bottom line in Q3 for Tesla? Matt, do you want to
Yeah, so
try to tackle that one?
we touched on this in last week's episode, so I won't kind of rehash that whole thing. If anyone is curious and the very detailed answer, you can go check out towards the end of our live stream last week. We did kind of walk through the logic of that. But I'm expecting, I think it was around $250 million hit to the bottom line. But there is this other like foreign currency translation amount that actually I was digging into this, and it's a little strange, but there actually is this foreign currency translation that doesn't hit net income, and it goes to this line on the balance sheet that's like other comprehensive earnings, or like retained earnings or something, or equity, something like that. Which is just kind of strange that you have like a line item that doesn't actually run through your income statement. So um, it does. I was trying to figure out if that's related to the cash balance or if that's related to like actual operations. I suspect it's cash balance, but I haven't dug into that yet. So I do expect something of a currency hit, but I don't think it's going to be too big in the grand scheme of things. And I think we're going to go over the earnings model next week. Is that right, Emmett?
Yeah, we're gonna try to do a more detailed dive on the earnings model Matt put together for Good Soil Investment. So we'll do a screen share, but we'll also talk through it so the folks on Spaces, even though they can't see the screen, they can understand what we're doing. So it'll be recorded on our YouTube channel as well for people to watch it afterwards. But yeah, we'll have a more detailed layout of the spreadsheet. So please send us your questions on the Twitter thread that we post of what you want specifically to know about the Tesla model, and we can hopefully go through it all in detail because it's very comprehensive. It'll be really
Yeah.
good to see where we end up this
And
quarter based on the production
we've
delivery.
we've got earnings in 2 weeks from today, and I think a lot of people that I've been following, I know Gary Black, a couple others, are James Stevenson, are not really expecting pretty any kind of really impactful earnings. So a lot of people I think are kind of punting to Q4 and thinking, all right, that's when we're really going to turn things around. But the more I've dug into it, and Emmett, you and I have done this together, I think we're really thinking Q3 is actually set up for a pretty significant beat. So of course we could be wrong. Don't trade on this. It's
Yeah,
not financial advice. But
yeah,
I'm very curious to see if our kind of logic and the way that we're thinking about Q3 actually does pan out to be true. Because if it does,
yeah.
it could potentially be a catalyst.
Yeah, maybe finally a short-term positive candle. That's for Tesla. It's nothing but negative lately. So short-term positive would be great for the earnings. That's really what matters. Those are signposts to the fundamentals of Tesla's future. Each one is like a beacon for proving the long-term fundamental strength of Tesla. So that's what matters the most is these earnings reports in reality, not the Tesla, not the Twitter takeover, not the bot reveal today. I mean, eventually the bot will show up in the fundamentals of the earnings reports, obviously. So, um, yeah, Let's go to the next
Yeah.
question here. From Jonathan W. Stokes on Twitter, do you have any concerns that the January tax rebates from the Inflation Reduction Act will impact Q4 demand? I think Tesla's knows how to handle this. I know there's a lot of. I mean, I've been investing in Tesla for a long time, so I remember when there was these types of concerns when they ran out of the original credits from that original. There was like an originally like a $2,500 or $5,000 deduction for electric vehicles, and every car manufacturer had like up to 200,000 or something like that to use. And then after that, then the next quarter would be 2,500. The next quarter would be $1,200 or something like that, and then it would be taken off altogether the quarter after. So there's like this element to timing. And I remember when that happened, it must have been 4 or 5 years ago now, and everyone was worried about demand slipping off because Tesla was gonna hit that number. Tesla knew how to handle it in a way where I think they discounted prices right after to take the hit, or so. I don't know. They thought about it and they have experience in this. Is my point, and they know how to even this demand pocket out in a way that I don't think will affect their delivery plans in North America, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Matt, are you
I
there?
agree with that. And, the other thing,
Oh,
yeah, can you
I
hear me?
think we lost you, Matt. Your audio seems to have gone out, Matt. So on the
Yeah,
spaces, at least YouTube Live, they say you ghosted out. Now I hear you now, Matt. Can everyone hear Matt?
all right. Yeah. So I was just gonna say, the Troy Teslake does these, backlog reports, and to me, I'm actually a lot more concerned about demand in China than I am in demand in the U.S. I mean, just in talking to people I know, like the vast majority of potential car buyers out there, I don't think are actually aware of the Inflation Reduction Act. And there actually has not been a definitive list yet from, I don't know if it's EPA that puts this out, or if it's the IRS, but which vehicles actually qualify for the $7,500 credit. Like, there's speculation on that, but it's certainly not clear definitively like who's going to, or which models qualify. So my sense is there's not a whole lot of consumer education on just how big this tax credit is yet. So I'm less concerned about that, but a little bit I am somewhat concerned about demand in China, honestly.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know what's going on the ground in China in terms of the economy. It's hard to trust sources when you're not talking to someone who's actually on the ground in China. In the economy there. It's hard to understand to really trust what's going on there. So Matt and I are trying to find if anyone of our followers or anyone wants to message us the name of someone who's like on the ground in China and informed on Tesla, and we'd love to just try to set up dialogues with some people on the ground in China that are informed, just to kind of keep a pulse on it, in probably a more accurate way than what headlines would lead to believe. So let's go to the next question here. From Tesla to Derium on Twitter, will a Tesla bot force Apple and Google to increase their own robot and AI efforts? And could big tech provide any competition? Yeah, I mean, you already see the Xiaomi bot. They tried to front run Tesla with their reveal of that bot, right? And I think you'll see at least discussions at high levels at Apple and Google probably already happening, about what is Tesla doing? Can we just do it better than them? I don't think anyone's going to do it as good as Tesla, but you have the branding of Apple and Google, obviously. So, it's possible they try to put something together similar. Any thoughts, Matt?
Like, I mean, the thing that those companies don't have is any manufacturing capability whatsoever.
Hmm.
So like maybe they do something like that, but to me it's like, how long have we been hearing about the rumored Apple car? To me it just seems like something similar. Like maybe they've got like some secret skunk works that develops a prototype or it works on developing a prototype, but like as Elon
Yeah.
always says, prototypes are easy and scaling is hard and manufacturing is hard. So um
Yeah.
like I kind of hope there is some, because competition is a good thing. But I just, like, given the track record of these companies and frankly their skill sets, I'm highly skeptical that they'll be able to do something, as competitive as Tesla.
Yeah. From Gary Itano on YouTube Live comments, question, could it be that Elon is basically buying out Twitter non-believers who will take his money and run? Good way to be rid of deck rats. I'm not sure what deck rats are. Matt, what do you think of it? I'm not sure. I'm not sure I understand this question. To
Yeah,
be
I'm
honest,
not
Matt.
sure that I do either. Like so buying. I presume he means the stockholders, like people who would be like the current shareholders of Twitter who don't really believe in it. But like I guess that's just like by definition the nature of what's going to happen. So I think I don't really understand this question either.
Yeah. Let's just move to the next one, I guess. And we'll open this up on Twitter Spaces shortly for more interactive questions once we close the YouTube live stream in a second, just because the YouTube live stream doesn't record the voices on Twitter Spaces. But the next question from Twitter is at CyrilJBNN on Twitter. Do you think Elon is going to be increasingly vocal on politics as geopolitical tensions rise, and will it undermine Tesla? I do. I actually do think Elon feels it is in his mind, and I agree that it's in the best interest of humanity for him to help steer us, in a safer direction where there's not World War III occurring with, so Elon knows he has a ton of influence. He's got over 100 million Twitter followers. He's got anything he says is a news report. So he knows he can use that influence to create headlines and initiate a new conversation or dialogue. Sometimes it backfires, and he knows it backfires a lot of times and gets a lot of personal attacks. But as he mentioned yesterday, he doesn't care about his own personal, you know, what people think of him personally. He just wants to do what's best for the world, and I totally believe in that. I mean, it's funny how many people don't believe that about Elon. There's so many skeptics that think Elon's just acting in his own self-interest all the time. Like, he'd be on luxury yachts, he'd have his own private island if that was the case. Like, he wouldn't be living in like a boxable house or whatever, working at SpaceX 20 hours a day to try to build this crazy starship thing. Like, he wouldn't be doing that with all his time and wealth if he cared about himself only. Like, it's, and then people are like, well, he's only. I just don't understand the people that are so skeptical of him. It's one thing to say, like, you think Elon is doing what he thinks is best for humanity, but I disagree with Elon's point of a direction of doing that. That's one thing. But for the people that think he's like disingenuous, those people I feel bad for, because they have what I call Elon derangement syndrome. And there's just so many people out there with that, and I don't know when that'll change or if it'll change anytime in our generation while we're alive. Maybe the history books will change that.
Yeah, I mean, my biggest takeaway from this is like I think he's trying to nudge the public discourse into like a slightly more I don't know, educated or understanding like format. I mean, yesterday's example, I think, was a kind of a really good microcosm of what's wrong with the current kind of like media setup, where like Elon made a suggestion, which I think was done with good intentions. I think he's wrong on a lot of his conclusions, but like there were so many people that were vilifying him and saying he's like a puppet of the Kremlin and all this stuff. And I'm like, well, why can't we like disagree on a proposal? Understand, like, he wants peace. I
Yeah.
think he's probably missing some of the facts, as we all are. And why don't we just have a public discourse about what's the right way forward? And instead, it's like the number one response is just like, Elon sucks, and
Yeah.
it's just like, that's not helpful. Why don't we talk about like the actual issue and try to solve that, instead of like getting fan points by having like the Ukraine flag in your bio and just like doing all the right signaling. It's like he said, he cares about the reality of doing good much more than the perception of it. And so much of what I saw yesterday was just people trying to capitalize on the perception of doing good. So I don't know.
Yeah.
My hope is that while I'm sure we're going to continue to disagree on this stuff, we can disagree in like a more helpful manner, where we can actually debate the validity of the different points and try to improve the public town square. So that's what I really hope happens.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
he'll catch a lot of
So
flack though.
he'll catch a lot of flack, but he doesn't care about his personal flack he's catching. Yeah. So yeah, there's so many like responses of like curses. It's just like when you see so many people responding with curses, it makes me think like it makes me really go against that grain and be like, those people are out of their minds, you know? Like
Yeah.
when you have to respond to Elon with like cursing him out and like calling him like names, like using, names that our kids aren't allowed to use, to respond. Like that's just like signals to me that like the truth can hurt and you're not prepared for the truth and you have to respond that way. So anyway, let's move on to the last question on the YouTube live stream. From Brian Wang. How you doing, Brian? Our friend here. Question: 7 exapod dojo at 9 exaflops is equal to Google's TPU 9 exaflop AI cloud. Well, that's a lot. That's like a tongue twister. Will this be billions in cloud revenue in late 2023, 2024? I mean, he did mention something about what I'm getting here is he mentioned something about in the Q&A, I think, portion of the AI day was that this is going to be more like Amazon Web Services model, where it's like in the cloud, and versus Nvidia. I think Nvidia has more of like they just give the hardware chips to the local,
Yeah.
I'm out of my league talking about this stuff, to be honest. I think that whatever Elon and Tesla are doing, I trust what they're doing here. We probably need to have someone like Naveen or someone on our channel again to discuss it more intelligently and explain it to us. I'm sure James Douma will be interviewed on multiple channels and he'll help in layman's terms. He's always very helpful. And there's others. Dr. Know-It-All is pretty good at that stuff. So, yeah, it's over my head, I would say. Matt, you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, it's potential. It's not the sort of thing I'd want to bake in. I was reading somewhere in somebody's thread that I know Nvidia has a new chip that's going to be released in, I don't know, maybe 6 months or something. And so a real test is going to be how does the Dojo chip compare to whatever Nvidia is going to release. So to me, it's like not entirely clear that this is going to be like some huge new service line. I think they're really doing it for internal uses primarily, and what I really care about, what I think is going to be a lot more impactful, is just can they solve FSD and autonomy, because that's the real opportunity, and what tools they use to do it are open to debate. But yeah, you're right though. We should probably have someone to unpack this, like Naveen on again. I think that'd be a really good conversation.
Yeah, I'll reach out to him and see. All right, well, we'll end the YouTube live stream here, and Alec, if you want to shut that off, and we'll continue for people on YouTube they can follow us on Twitter Spaces, which is also recorded on the Twitter Spaces as well, if you want to listen to it later.